Alright, so we are back and we are going to do DR270, building a staircase, and really this is part one. Just like in class, we're going to be building the basic parts of the staircase first, and then we're going to add on the balusters and the knoll posts. So the objective is to learn simple or intermediate shapes and placing and arraying correctly. That's something that's really going to be very good for building a lot of objects, because they generally tend to be complicated only because they do something a lot of times. So one of the tips I want you to have is be very careful to look closely every time you click on something. Every time you pick something up and every time you put something down, be very aware of where you're clicking in order to place it in the right place. That's a very, very important part of the move tool, and it can be very powerful if used correctly. If used incorrectly, it can mess up your entire model in no time flat. So let's go ahead and go to here. Now, we are going to be building this staircase right here. We're going to start with this 4x4 platform, build these staircases going up, make a 3x3, close in the visible side of this model. Then we're going to build these steps coming down, and we're going to round these two steps using the arc tool for the first time. And that will be the end of this video. The next video will be these knoll posts and the balusters. Okay, so we're going to start with the rectangle tool. We're going to make a 4x4 platform, so 4 foot, comma 4 foot, enter, and grab the push-pull tool and bring that up to 2 feet. So again, that's 4 feet by 4 feet by 2 feet. Grab my tape measure tool, and as you can see, 4 by 4 by 2. Now the first step we're going to make with the rectangle tool. I want it anchored over here in the back corner, and we're going to make it off in this direction. But you see, as I'm trying to do that, I have a hard time making something close to the right shape. So instead, I'm just going to make sure that the rectangle I make is on this plane, the same plane as the surface at the top of this platform, but going off in this direction. Then I'm going to click, and I'm going to restructure that size. So I'm going to tell it to be 3 feet wide by 10 inches deep. So this is 10 inches here, and this is 3 feet here. I'm going to grab my push-pull tool, and I'm going to pull it up. I'm going to pull it up 8 inches and hit enter. So now I have one step of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps and a platform, which makes a total of 7 items. I have one original item, so I'm going to replicate it 6 times. Now, when I select this, I can't just triple click on it. And this is why we make things components, but there's a reason I don't want to make this a component. We'll get to that in a minute. I want these surfaces, when they're done, to all be melded together. So I'm going to keep it from being a component. So I have to carefully select this one step out of all the other steps. If I select a crossing window, which is from the right to the left, and I should note that this can be upper right to lower left or lower right to upper left, it doesn't matter. It's going to select everything it touches or everything it crosses. So even though this big 4x4 platform is not in all the way in this window, it's still going to select it, and it's going to select all of it. It won't select this because the selection window didn't touch it at all. It would if I made my selection window this far. Now, if you go from left to right, it will only select the things that completely fall within the boundary. Now you notice mostly that's just the step. It also includes this line because this line goes from here to the back corner. So when I select, I just want to be very careful that I don't select all of this line or all of this back line. That has a lot to do with the view at which I'm looking at the object. I can still do it here, I can still do it here, but it would be very difficult from a straight-on view here, because it would be very difficult for me not to get this piece in there. Still possible, but see, I got that. So generally I like to find a good view where I know all I'm getting is that one object and make sure I'm getting that object. Now we're going to use the move tool without this being a component, and that is fine. We want to make sure that we get this bottom corner in duplication, because all of our steps we want them to meet very exactly. So we're going to grab this bottom corner And you notice that if I try and move it, the sticky geometry is going to keep my object stuck to that 4x4 platform. So if I were just moving it, I'd be changing all of the dynamics of that 4x4 platform. But I'm not moving it, I'm copying it. So when I type the type is still accurate. When I type or tap the control key, I'm going to create a copy. And now the original is still in the same spot and all of that is fine, and I am moving around a copy that is not attached to the 4x4 platform. So don't let that scary manipulation of geometry fool you. You want to make sure that you attach it to the other corner of the step so that it's stepping up and everything's attached in the right place. Now I'm going to click, but before I click on anything else, I'm going to hit ×6, enter. ×6, enter. That's going to give me a total of 5 more steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that 3x3 platform. We're going to pull that into a 3x3 in a second. But one of the reasons we want to make sure that we grab on the right spot and push down on the same spot is that if I did it wrong, if I grab, let's say I don't grab right on the edge, let's say I grab a little in, okay, and then forgot to select my object first. Spacebar for selection, inclusion window. I'm going to grab M for the move tool, and I'm going to grab not the corner to show you what would happen if we did that. I'm going to tap the control key. I somehow deselected that window. There we go. I'm going to grab the control key. Now if I put it exactly on this back corner, so I only got one of the two wrong. I only picked it up in the wrong spot. Once I hit ×6, each one of those steps is off by a tiny bit. So what would happen if I tried to close that off is that all of my steps would be very, very wrong. And they would get more wrong the more steps that I made. Now, this error can go either way. I could get it wrong when I pick up my piece, or I could get it wrong, let's get it right when I pick it up, and now I'll get it wrong when I place my piece. Instead of getting it on the endpoint, maybe I get it just a little bit off the endpoint. And then once again I do ×6 and I try and make this flat. Now this one looks really good. I mean, I can't see any bit of it that's off right now. But if I were to make a wall just like I did before, there's that error. And you can see that it's compounded over time in building those objects. And right now to fix that, that would be really hard. Without doing a Control-Z and fixing it, if I don't discover this error till later, it's going to be very difficult for me to fix it. I might as well just delete it and start over. I would have to push all of these in till they met the wall and then make sure that every step was still 3 feet wide. So I'd basically have to do this on both sides. And that would be complicated. So I don't want to do that. I just Control-Z or undid a little too far. So I'm going to redo, also known as Control-Y, in order to get this back. So now I have my steps going up, my platform. I want to pull this top step into a 3-foot platform, so I'm going to use the push-pull tool. And our steps are 10 inches, so I know if I pull it out 2 foot 2 inches, that it'll be 3 feet, because it's math and it doesn't fail you. So corner, measure 3 feet, 3 feet. What you can also do if you don't feel like doing math, which is also perfectly fine, is have Sketchup do it for you. So grab the tape measure tool, pull out a guideline in this direction. That is 3 feet. Hello. There we go. 3 feet. And then grab your push-pull tool and pull it to that line. Oh. Unless you mess up and do it in the wrong direction. But that appears to still be incorrect. Tape measure tool, make sure it's on the red direction, 3 feet, push pull tool, pull to the line. Okay, I'm going to get rid of these extra guidelines because they're going to get in our way. So I'm going to go to Edit, Delete Guides. Now I want to close in this side of the platform. So I'm going to grab the rectangle tool and I'm going to go from this corner all the way down to our original corner. And this is why we didn't make it a component, because now when I take the eraser tool and I erase this line, all of these things are all free to touch and affect each other. If they were components, they wouldn't affect each other. And so now I can delete all the lines I don't need and have a clear side. Now I also want this to go all the way to the floor. So I am going to grab this back corner and drag my cursor over to this bottom corner over here. I want to hover over it so that SketchUp knows I want it to line up, and then I'm going to pull straight down. And you see how that endpoint became a black dot. SketchUp is making sure that the square sticks to that point and doesn't move anywhere. And by move, I mean this. I can either go down or up or get some really weird shapes. So if I hover over this point, SketchUp knows I want it to pay attention to that point. And I'm going to drag straight down until I hit the edge, click, and now I can delete these 2 extra pieces. The next thing we have to do is is to make another set of stairs. So I'm going to make them a different way. I'm going to pull them out like drawers. So I'm going to start with my full platform and then grab the top and bring down a line at 8 inches. And do it again, bring it down to 8 inches. Grab my line tool and make those 2 have lines. While I'm here with the line tool, I'm going to go ahead and grab this corner and pull it over, making sure that this stays green so it's nice and horizontal and gets all the way to that edge. And remember, that's important so that it separates the surfaces. You want to be careful. I don't know if you saw that right there where I was at the orientation that I was looking at it, it looks like it could have intersected with this. And it's entirely possible that I could accidentally draw a line like that, which attaches to the line instead of attaching to the wall. So you want to be careful of things like that when your guidelines start to get in your way. I can also delete them once I've made my lines so that I don't have that problem. Now I'm going to push, pull, and each of these steps were 10 inches wide, so this step should be 10 inches, and then this step should be 10 inches more. So I can either, from this point, grab it, pull out and say 20 inches, or I can grab it, make it match, and then say 10 inches again. The other thing I can do is that SketchUp remembers the last amount that you pushed and pulled. So I can grab it and pull it, type in 10 inches, great. Now I can just double click right here and double click again, and I'll get that same amount coming out. So one more time, since it remembered that I've done 10 inches the last time, I'm just going to double click here, and that's pulled out the right amount. And I'm going to do it again, just double. And so all of those are exactly the same. I want to go ahead and pull out the steps on this side as well. So I'm going to make sure that those lines are nice and fluid. They're very straight, they are green all the way across, and they make an intersection point. Then I'm going to do the push-pull tool again, just double click, and double click again. So now I need to make the curves with the arc tool. I'm going to grab the arc tool, which is up here, despite the fact that all these things I just hovered over have curves in them. It's not what I'm looking for. So I want you to take a second to look at the actual cursor and see how it has 3 little squares on a curved line, and it has one of them highlighted in red. When I make my first arc, I'm going to click, and now it switches to the other side. That's because it wants me to click the other endpoint for the arc. Click and then pull, and it wants me to click the height of the bulge of the arc. And as you can see on the cursor, it's telling you that you're clicking the center line. So your cursor changes to visually give you an idea of what part of the arc process you're in. You can see that endpoint, endpoint, center, endpoint, endpoint, center. Okay? And also, since I'm drawing on one surface, once I closed that surface, I enclosed that area, it made it a surface. Excuse me. I'm going to go ahead and erase all that. Now, to make an arc on this corner, I want to make sure that the arc goes exactly lined up to here. So I could just hover over this point and pull down, making sure that that dashed line stays green, and hit that end point and click, and then pull out. And I know from making this so many times that I want it to be 3.25 inches. And I want to keep a measurement so that all of them are exactly the same. What I can also do is switch my line tool with the L key and click in the end point and click on the edge so that I have a point to anchor to. So I'm going to hit the arc tool and go end point to end point, pull, and then 3.25 enter, and there it is. So once again, in order to get the other side of your arc, you can click and just inference this point and carefully pay attention to whether or not it's lined up. So I make sure that that dotted green line is still there, and then I'm all the way on the edge, and click, pull, 3.25 enter. Or I can use the line tool to make a line, making sure that it stays green, gets all the way to the edge, and click. Use A to switch the arc tool and make that arc, 3.25 enter. Now that I've done that, I'm going to grab the push-pull tool and push the extra piece down till it's level with the step below it. When I'm on the outside, it's going to disappear because there's no existing geometry under it to make a new shape. Now I'm going to grab the eraser tool and I'm going to erase all this ugly excess geometry that I don't need. Now, here's one last thing. These, if you delete them, well, they're kind of important. So you can't just delete them. What you can do is hold Shift and move your cursor over it as if you're deleting it, and what will happen is it will hide them. So now those pieces are little hidden lines that you don't have to look at, but are still there. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and save this, and we are going to continue making the bolsters and arraying them and the newel posts on our next video.